So Ash Scow covers these sorts of stories for the Daily Wire. Now, what have we been saying? What have I said in some of these videos? It doesn't matter if she enthusiastically says yes. You can still get charged with rape if she changes her mind, people. Now, we don't know all the details of this story, but it certainly sounds like it was a consensual encounter. She verbally consented to sex, but the school determined he committed sexual assault because he cajoled her. Oh my God. A new lawsuit filed against Pennsylvania State University includes several abnormalities, including the school's decision to review the first hearing into a student's alleged sexual misconduct, and the decision to change the definition of consent in the middle of disciplinary proceedings. John Doe, as he's referred to John Doe, right? And she's Jane Roe. He was accused of sexually assaulting a student at the end of January 2018. They met the previous spring, it says in the story. They were both part of the Schreier's Honors College, right? So these couple of smart kids. On January 26, 2018, the two met up again in a computer lab, and they started talking, and they started flirting. Jane put her number into John's phone, according to the lawsuit, and texted herself, quote, "I love you." The two continued to flirt for several days, and Jane even spent time in John's dorm room on his bed. She told him she didn't want to be friends with benefits. She wanted more, maybe a relationship. Who knows? Don't really say. On January 27th, Jane told John her roommate was out and gave him her dorm room number. Well, John went over to her room at 1 o'clock. The two talked, began kissing. John's lawsuit claims that Jane's initial accusation lined up with his own memory of the incident. He performed several sexual acts on her, but stopped as soon as she asked, and that she told him to stay in her room when she went to the bathroom, and then provided him with a condom. The two engaged in sexual intercourse. After the encounter, Jane continued to flirt with John over text messages and allegedly told her friends she wanted to have sex with him again. The lawsuit claims Jane later changed her account of the sexual encounter, and she claimed John physically forced her into sex. In other words, he raped her, and that she tried to get away from him. So a hearing panel was convened, and John was denied due process, as many other accused students are. He was not allowed to call witnesses in his defense or cross-examine his accuser or the witnesses against him. Jane was allowed to present, quote, new information during her testimony that had not been included in the information John received about the investigation, even though the two were both told explicitly not to bring up new information. Jane's new evidence was her explanations for why she sent flirtatious text to John before and after their encounter and, quote, explain unfavorable and contradictory information in the packet, according to John's lawsuit. Well, of course, John was accused. And of course he was found responsible, right? How could it be any other way? John was suspended for a year, it says here. Oddly, after the hearing, it says Pennsylvania State University's Title IX coordinator, Chris Harris, asked for a more detailed explanation of why John was found responsible, something that hadn't been done before and was not outlined in the published disciplinary proceedings information. So the hearing panel's chair told Harris that the, quote, panel felt that the respondent's continual flattery. Seriously. Some examples include, haha, nah, you're beautiful, followed by 2 wink emojis, then followed by I want to be both and you're beautiful, and I'm not that emotional, I could be both, after she clearly stated, still not gonna fuck you, friend, followed by 2 squinting face with tongue emojis, and her statement that hooking up ruins friendships constitutes cajoling. The panel also found Jane more credible than John. Oh, God, is anyone surprised? She accused him. He's obviously guilty. They found her more credible because, quote, she was able to offer specific details as to the interaction, which were consistent not only throughout the investigation, but also with the text message thread provided. Yet John couldn't offer such details until he saw the allegations. Jane made her accusation against John 6 months after their encounter. So it sounds like she consented to have sex, gave the guy a condom, they banged, they both had fun. 6 months later, she changed her mind and accused him of raping her. Did she call the police? No, of course not. While Doe was appealing the decision, He was informed by Danny Shaha, Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, that the appeals process was on hold. He wrote to the appeals officer that the first hearing was under review as the board may have misinterpreted the university's definition and application of coercion. Shaha did not vacate the hearing panel's finding since it didn't meet the definition of coercion. Instead, he set up a new hearing. Prior to the second hearing, John was provided with a copy of the university's new definition of consent, which included the word cajoling as part of the definition of coercion. The definition was not at the time that this allegedly happened, was not published anywhere public by the school, but it was used against him in the new hearing. John is now suing to stop the ongoing disciplinary process, claiming due process violations, gender discrimination. No kidding. So we know the story. They two got together 6 months later. She decides it was rape, reports him to the school. He gets suspended for a year. Even with consent, guys. I cannot say this enough. Even with consent, you're still playing Russian roulette. Anytime. In this case, 6 months later, years later, in the Kavanaugh hearing, she can claim you raped her. And in this case, being Title IX, you're guilty. They'll even change the rules. Oh my God, the link is below. James Maxwell, thank you for listening.